Hey, everybody. In the wake of the George Floyd murder at the knee of Derek Chauvin, a number of people have said, uh, well, it's hard to be black in America. It's rough. And as if there was something else, put on a black suit just to try it on, see how it feels. And then came up with this evaluation. Or then I saw this. We'll add to the stream right here. What it's like to be black. Again, and it's someone written by something written by a black person, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, let me take my blackness and explain it to the white world. That's how it's written. Look at the title. Look at the title. What it's like to be black. Okay, and I'm not criticizing writing this. All right, and I'm not saying this shouldn't have been written, but I'm also saying that it's this person's view. Happens to come from someone by the name of Shirley J. Scott. And I'm certainly not putting this up to gaslight it, but it's to make a point. And the point simply is that too often you hear these messages that say, I'm sorry for being black. I'm afraid of being black. I'm concerned because I'm black. And collectively, it's negative. This kind of negative self-esteem has defined blackness in America, and it's time to stop it. It's been so bad over our history that when I was growing up in the 60s, in 1967, Reverend Jesse Jackson had, actually prior to that though, but when I went to my first Operation Push convention, campaign, I Am Somebody. And that manifested itself into a now famous speech that he had. He was trying to lift up African Americans in a community. I brought home a button that said, I am somebody. And my mom said, you don't need to wear that button to know that you're important, to know that you're somebody. And that directive from my mother has guided me through the rest of my life. And so now, in the wake of all of this social unrest in the middle of a pandemic, which provides its own unique kind of social unrest, we have people saying, it's really tough to be black in America. It's really hard. And I'm saying it's not, okay? What's difficult is other black folks who, by their comments, structure a design and view about society that affects the rest of us. And so if you have a lot of people saying it's hard to be black in America, guess what? They will actually stop trying to achieve what they really are accomplished enough, brilliant enough, talented enough to go for. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. In 1983, I was head of the YMCA Youth in Government program. Youth in Government, as it was practiced then, I don't know if it exists still now, I hope it does, but Youth in Government was a program where students from a high school would learn about how to run their government legislatively. They were essentially mock senators and congresspeople. We write bills, argue bills, have bill writing sessions, that sort of thing. The entire state of Texas, the YMCAs that were involved in the Youth in Government program. And so all of our activities on a city basis, like Fort Worth, what I was responsible for, all concentrated on, for their end days, an event called City Day. So at City Day, I was responsible for 3 schools. Eastern Hills, which was public and racially mixed, Nolan, which was white and Catholic, and Dunbar, which is black and public. So at the City Day event, my students from Nolan were doing a dance called the Gator. And the Gator is where you lay down on the floor. It's a chain dance. You lay down like gators like this, one behind the other, and the other person gets up and you hop behind and you fall down and actually it's in the reverse and you wind up going into this motion like a gator. Okay. It was fun. Get a little dirty if the floor is dirty though. Didn't think about that at the time though. I was too busy having fun. And my students from Dunbar were all gathered in one clump on a lunch bench watching this. And I went over, sweat dripping, and I said, well, what's going on? Why aren't you guys dancing with us? I mean, they said, we're not going to do that dance. It's for white people. And I said, I order you to do that dance. So reluctantly, they did. And after a time, reluctance turned into pleasure. And one of them came up to me and they said, that was fun. And what I was trying to do is open their eyes to think beyond racial boundaries that are placed within them, as expressed by the idea, we're not going to do that dance. It's for white people, which means, hey, look, I'm going to be rejected. It's not something that I do if I want to be thought of as black. That thought is not only something they have and are afflicted with, it's happened with me with respect to music. I remember I was into rap, I was into some rock, but I wasn't into the metal. And it wasn't until my roommate, Keith Johnson, who's black, who was into Black Sabbath and everything, and I thought, God, that's white music. But I really it wasn't something that I was married to as a thought, okay? But I realized it was there. I only had one roommate prior to that, two roommates, but those roommates were not into that kind of music. They were both black. Keith was different. But I realized that the music that Keith liked, that I at first was uncomfortable that he liked, I realized I really liked it too. And so it only took me a few days, frankly, to enjoy the music because it was stuff that I heard, but I was locked into a boundary, a racial boundary thought, okay? But it took a black person, in this case, my friend Keith Johnson, who will probably see this, to unlock that in me. And when those barriers are unlocked in your mind, you can be a black person in a room that may be entirely white and give a presentation without fear or thought that they're not going to like you because they're black, but with confidence because you believe you have the better idea, can do the better presentation, and can sell your tail off, okay? We all, regardless of our color, our sex, are insecure. Insecurity is not the province of any one type of person in the United States by far, particularly in a society that pits each other against one another because of capitalism. You know, it's interesting. We go to school, we go to public school, high school, junior high, and we think because our friend is an African-American homecoming king, right? Or African-American homecoming queen, and we have a mix, a demographic mix that is almost predominantly white, but not quite. All right. So we think, hey, you know what? We're not going to have to worry about this when we come out. And I say that because that was certainly the case at Skyline, where I went to school, class of 80 in Oakland. Okay. Yes. Tom Hanks school. And so you get out in the world and you compete for the dollar in a system that doesn't provide you a good safety net. And then all of those isms come out that people employ to get ahead. That makes it harder, yes, for those of us who are African American than it should be. But you got to get over that. And the best way to get over that is to believe, as Sammy Baldwin said, that you're the best blankety blank out there. You got to have that confidence. Yes, it is hard, but I will grant you this. Your chosen line of work is such that whatever it means, it may be hard for everybody, regardless. But here's the thing: you have the freedom to go in any direction you want to, and that's what makes being black in America a lot less harder. But to me, what makes being black in America so cool is you immediately find out where people are coming from. They may not tell you bluntly, but you can figure out by words and by actions who your friends are, how racist they are. Even black folks who don't necessarily like other black folks, or black folks who think that, you're not cool because you talk like a white person. Okay. You will find out the real texture of American society if you are black. And that's a beautiful thing. That's why, that's why I don't come out with words that would spell that I wish I was someone else. I don't. I love every second of being who I am as a person, period. And by the fact that will be 58, that's not going away. But I am consistently dismayed when younger African Americans put those same walls in front of them that my Dunbar High School students had in their head before I intervened. Those walls that are expressed by ideas like, I'm not going to do that because I don't see anybody that looks like me doing it. If I thought like that, I would have never learned institutional economics, because the number of African Americans who are black, who are institutional economists, who are recognized, is that big. But because I read John Kenneth Galbraith, tried to meet him later, came close, I was exposed to the idea of institutional economics and think about the world in a way that's quite different, quite possibly, than the way you learned economics, which may be more traditional if you learned it at all. So there is nothing wrong with being black. Nothing. Be proud of who you are, and don't dismay to be yourself in any situation. Another person who's my role model is John Rizzo at Skyline. He would say, I'm Italian. I'm Italian. He wasn't deriding anybody else. He loved being Italian. And in the same way that he can say, I'm Italian, in a room full of African Americans or students, or it doesn't matter, right? Right? Justice for George, right? You should be able to say, I'm black. And that be regarded as a beautiful thing, because you have a unique heritage and culture in the United States, just as someone Italian American does. All right. That's why Spike Lee's movies are so cool, because they show a unique interplay between African Americans and Italian Americans that isn't discussed enough. But I'm here to tell you, there's nothing wrong with being black in America. Don't let that come out of your mouth. There is something wrong with being black in America if you think there's something wrong. You feel like you have those barriers, but you have to take those mental barriers away and go forth. Yeah, there's going to be, disappointments, rejections, racist buttholes that need to be thrown in jail. All that comes with the territory, but you know how to recognize them in a way that others don't. Okay? Because they will reveal who they are just by you walking down the street, either positively or negatively. You know what I'm talking about. So we got to hold that up. We can't go south. And I don't want to hear young people tell me how opportunities are not for them. You have to make them for you. And I'm not saying it's easy. It's not. But you got to have that you have that mindset that says, I'm going to try this. If it doesn't work this way, try it another way. If it doesn't try it that way, try it another. And if it's not working, then maybe that's not the path the Lord wants you to be on. That's a hard pill to swallow. It's hard for me when I try to do something. Hard right now. But the one thing that I've been able to do, I'll give you an example. 4 years ago, a buddy of mine brought me to meet these two attorneys that he knew at a San Francisco gathering place and called the Battery. And these guys from Florida, and they said, we're going to put $22,000 of work, legal work, into your Zinnia 62 Media. Set up the corporate papers, all that stuff, right? 22,000. I thought, great, awesome, we're off and running, yay, going to get incorporated, going to have the stock structure, all that stuff. These buttholes get back to Tampa, and it took me 2 weeks to try to contact them. Never heard from them. And after 2 weeks, send me an email saying, we're not interested in your project. After all that yada yada BS at the Battery, I got that. But they had my pitch deck too. So I felt like I'd been stripped. Fast forward to 2019, and I said, you know what? There's a different way to do this. So I got online, I found a software service company. To make a long story short, I spent $258 to do all the things I needed done through Swift filings, plug the Swift filings, all the things I had to do to start Zinnia 62 Media Incorporated and get it legally recognized by the state of Delaware. We're done in just 2 weeks. And it cost me $258, not $22,000. And so while those guys were sitting on my corporate idea, now it's got a life of its own. It's got its own EIN number, its own DUNS number, its own bank account, its own contractors, everything. It is a corporation. I gave birth to a corporation. Okay. After being stopped by them, and then when I started Sports Business Simulations, God love my attorney, but he didn't do it the right way. He had me basically in 2 states, paying money and owing money I didn't need to pay or owe. Eek. Study. Don't give up on your dream. Make it happen. Figure out another way. It'll take you longer than you thought. But you know what? The journey is the reward. And don't think that society is against you because you're Black. Even if there are avenues that seem closed out to you for reasons of race and racism, figure out ways around them. Okay. We've been doing that for decades, man. Don't give up. All right. Got to stick with it. But again, I'm going to say this and I'm going to out of here. Young folks, people who are younger than 30, stop saying it's not for you. You're too young for that. Mark Zuckerberg started Facebook when he was 23. Hey, he had one thing he loved to code. All right. Maybe other aspects of his life didn't work right, but he was doing one thing that helped him get over all that other stuff. You know what it was? He wasn't afraid to create. Don't be afraid to create. All right. I'll see everybody. And I will say this: live long and prosper. Yeah, Star Trek. Thanks.